So hello, what's up? How is everyone doing? Welcome to this revision session where we are going to revise all the concepts and amazing questions of NBFC, that is a non-banking financial company. Before I begin with this video, let me just tell you this chapter is very important from exam point of view. You can expect a weightage of 5 to 7 marks in your exam. If I talk about the last exam which happened in November 2024, in that ICI asked this concept for 5 marks descriptive question plus 2 marks of MCQ. So you can also say that 5 to 7 marks of NBFC can be tested in your exam. And let me tell you, this topic is very easy and scoring. You just need to sit with me. You just need to sit with this revision video. Just keep your books and a pen and paper with you. And whatever important things you want to scribble, you can start scribbling down with me. Okay, sir. Before I begin with this chapter, let's understand the concept first. What do you mean by NBFC? So NBFC, as the name suggests, it is a non-banking financial company. Just like a bank, it can take money in the form of borrowing or deposits from a person. In return, it will give the interest. Got it, sir? Apart from this, it can also give loans to a party who needs the loans, and again will take interest. Whatever is the interest differential, that is the interest that it gets, and the interest it pays, it forms the income of NBFC majorly. Now, sir, what is the difference between a bank or an NBFC? So these are certain difference. Like in case of a bank, you can open a saving account, current account, but these can't be done in case of NBFC. In NBFC, in certain NBFC, there can only be fixed deposit for selected NBFC. Can I issue checks? No. Can I give payments? No. You cannot do these things with your deposits in the NBFC. Plus, as in a bank, there is a deposit insurance available. This thing is not available for a NBFC. Okay, sir. Now, sir, when can you say a company has become a NBFC? When it passes two stages. First is the 50-50 test. Once it passes the 50-50 test, then it needs to go for the RBI registration. For that, it needs to have some minimum net owned funds. These are just like saying a capital. Minimum capital should be there. Now, sir, what is a 50-50 test? 50-50 test means that the financial assets of the NBFC should be more than 50% of the total assets net of intangible assets, and income from the financial assets should be more than 50% of the gross income. If these two tests are passed, then NBFC has to go for RBI registration. You understood the concept or not? Yes, sir. Now, based on this concept, let's do one question. So come to question number 11. It says there is a ABC Limited, which is a company registered under Companies Act. Companies engaged in the business of providing the loans, advances, acquiring the shares, stocks, and all these things. For the year ended 31st March 21, this is an extract of some balance sheet items given. Directors intend to apply for RBI registration for NBFC advice. So I told you, for applying for RBI registration, you need to pass the 50-50 test. Now let's test the 50-50 test. What are the financial assets of this company? So sir, the financial assets are non-current assets, loans and advances, current assets, loans and advances. Just if we add both of them, it comes out to be 400 crores. Now, sir, what is the total assets? The total assets is 530 crore. But remember, we have to take total assets net of intangible asset. That means 530 minus 3, 527 crore. Mostly students forget this part, so please remember it. Now, if you calculate the percentage of financial assets to total assets, it comes out to be 76%. Does it make it more than 50%? Yes. So 50 wala test is passed. Now another 50 test. Income from the financial assets, which is interest and dividend, it is 52 crore. We take it like that. What is the gross income? 102.57 crore. We take it like that. What is the percentage of the gross income? 50.69%. Again, it is more than 50%. So can I say another leg of the 50-50 test is also passed? Yes, sir. Since both the tests are passed, so first of all, you write the theory, then you show the calculation, and then you say, yes, the company can apply for registration under section 45 IE. How do we remember it? Section 45 IE, registration karwaiye. Say with me. In Hindi, we say it like section 45 IE, registration karwaiye of RBI Amendment Act 1997. So generally the RBI Act is 1934, but here we use the RBI Amendment Act 1997 for registration purpose. Is the 50-50 test ka whole concept crystal clear to you? Yes, sir. Now, sir, once you pass the 50-50 test, you need to check the minimum net owned funds of NBFC, which should be right now 10 crore. Earlier, the limit was 2 crore only. Got it, sir. So it says the limit is 10 crore for the companies currently applying for the registration purpose. But remember, there are certain exceptions, very important from MCQ point of view. If you are a NBFC P2P, P2P means peer-to-peer lending, or a account aggregator which collects the bank account information, or you don't have any access to the public funds, no access to the customer interface, then in that case, because your NBFC is covered in the base layer, I hope you have already studied NBFC before referring this revision video, okay? Because these are the concepts we have already discussed. So if you are covered in the base layer, that means these type of NBFC, net owned funds requirement is only 2 crore. But if you are a NBFC which is related to infrastructure means NBFC infrastructure finance company, NBFC infrastructure debt fund, then the net owned fund limit is 300 crore. And let me tell you, this part is the amendment wala part. Oh, this is the amendment wala part. So very, very important from MCQ point of view. Now, sir, you told us, everyone please focus on the board, that earlier the limit was 2 crore. So current NBFCs must be having a limit of 2 crore. How will they reach the limit of 10 crore? They have given a proper path. So they have said there are certain NBFC, investment and credit company, microfinance institution, NBFC factors. Don't worry, we will revise these concepts in this video. So currently NBFC ICC, that is investment and credit company, current limit is 2 crore. By 31st March 2025, the date which is already gone, it should be 5 crore. And by 31st March 27, after 2 years, it should be 10 crore. So at the end, all will come to 10 crore only, but from 2 to 5, 5 to 10. For this microfinance institution and factor, it is same. So currently both are at 5 crore. 5 plus 2 is equal to 7 crore. And ultimately they will also reach to 10 crore. So this flow should be clear in your mind. Got it, sir? I hope the basics still here are clear. Yes, sir. Let's quickly revise from the book whatever we have discussed. Focus on the board. Definition part, we already know what is an NBFC. First of all, financial company, financial institution, which is a company. Non-banking means non-banking institution where the principal business is of receiving the deposits and lending, that is passing the 50-50 test. Financial assets more than 50% of the total assets, and finance income from financial assets more than 50% of the gross income, and such other definition as may be given by RBI. Now, sir, first test is company is equal to NBFC if it is passed the 50-50 test. This we have already discussed. Once you pass the 50-50 test, the second thing is minimum net owned funds criteria should be met so that you can take registration with RBI as per section 45 IA of RBI Act 1934, amendment in 1997. Got it, sir? Till here, everything we have discussed very properly. Now, sir, talking about the characterization of NBFC. Understand all the characterization by looking at the board. Everyone, please focus. Based on deposit acceptance, NBFC can be deposit taking or non-deposit taking. Now, based on the asset size of the non-deposit taking, it can be further classified into base layer, middle layer, upper layer, or in top layer. You understood the point or not? Yes, sir. Now, sir, there are variety of NBFCs whose name is mentioned in this chapter. Let's understand the concept. This purple wala part, conceptual part, is not relevant from exam point of view, but just to give you some comfort. First of all, investment and credit company. The main work is to invest, that is in the shares, securities of other companies, or give credit, that is lending the money. Infrastructure debt fund and infrastructure finance company. What is the difference? Infrastructure finance company, they finance new infrastructure projects like roads, bridges, etc. Infrastructure debt funds helps to pay off existing debts of the infrastructure projects which have already been completed. So if a road is already completed and it wants to pay off the loan, then infrastructure debt fund will help such road infrastructure company. Got it, sir? Now talking about microfinance institution. These are not small NBFC. They help the small business. Got it, sir? Now comes non-operating financial holding company. Once again, non-operating financial holding company. Non-operating means they don't have their own operations. But being a holding company, they hold shares of financial companies. Financial companies, like there can be a subsidiary which is doing the banking business, subsidiary which is providing the insurance business, or a subsidiary which is providing the mutual fund business. Then, sir, asset finance company will help you to purchase assets on EMI. Loan company will provide loans. Mortgage guarantee company will provide a guarantee to the lender for borrower's default. So if the borrower default, mortgage guarantee company will help the bank. Got it, sir? Peer-to-peer lending. In peer-to-peer lending, there is a lender, there is a NBFC, there is a borrower. Lender provides the money to the NBFC, NBFC provides the money to the borrower. Here the NBFC just act as an agent. Okay, sir. So if the borrower defaults, who will bear the risk? NBFC will not bear the risk. It will be the risk of the lender. So that's why I'm saying NBFC is just acting as an agent in peer-to-peer lending. Got it, sir? Now comes account aggregator. Aggregator is someone who collects the information. So they collect and store, then share the bank account information of the people. So whenever I open my bank, let's say in ICICI Bank, I share a lot of information with ICICI Bank. So this information can be collected by a account aggregator, so that next time I open another bank account in another bank, they can share the information. Then comes core investment company, whom we call CIC in Caro 2020 also. So these companies invest in their own group companies. And just for your knowledge, minimum 90% of the assets are like this only, where they are investing in the own group companies. Then comes NBFC factors. They help you to factoring business. They help with the factoring business. What is a factoring business? Buying the debtors at discount. Now comes another type of NBFC, stand alone primary dealer. Sir, do they stand alone? Bad joke. Basically, they deal in government securities. So what happens is, government provides the securities to the SPDs sell the securities to the public. So they are acting as a dealer in the government securities. So these are the basic concepts that you should be knowing. That's it. Now comes exam point of view. As per NBFC scale based regulations, NBFCs can be classified in 4 layers: base layer, middle layer, upper layer, and then comes top layer. If I talk about the base layer includes NBFC non-deposit taking with the asset size less than 1000 crore. Less than 1000 crore. And if the NBFC is doing following activities, it will become a part of base layer. These things you need to learn, and I will also revise how they need to be learned. First of all, peer-to-peer lending. I hope you remember peer-to-peer lending. NBFC is just like acting like an agent, and you are transferring the money to NBFC and it is giving to the borrower. Accounts aggregator, just collecting the bank account information. Non-operative financial holding company, holding the shares in subsidiaries which are doing financial business. Itself, it is not doing any business. And lastly, NBFC with no access to public funds and no customer interface. All these NBFCs are becoming a part of base layer. Okay, so why they are a part of base layer? Because in reality, they are not doing any NBFC work. They are not incurring any risk. They are just doing small businesses of peer-to-peer lending, account aggregator, no operational wala business, no access to public funds, and no customer interface. Sir, how can we remember these points? Very easy. Who builds the base of the house? Sir, it is our parents. And parents include pa. Pa means father. So just remember pa. Pa means P for peer-to-peer lending, A for account aggregator. Acha, father is just like a parent company or a holding company. So remember this point of also non-operative financial holding company. Say with me, non-operative financial holding company. And last में no access to public funds, no customer interface. What are the 4 NBFCs covered in base layer? PA. PA means parent. PA means P for peer-to-peer lending, A for account aggregator. Parent company means holding company, that means NOFHC, non-operative financial holding company. And lastly, no access to public funds, no customer interface. Easy, easy, sir. After the base layer, we move to the middle layer. So in middle layer, we cover all the deposit taking NBFC. Their asset size does not matter. Their asset size does not matter. And NBFC non-deposit taking, where the asset size is more than equal to 1000 crore. Remember na, in base layer we covered asset size less than 1000 crore? Yes, sir. Here we are covering the asset size of more than equal to 1000 crore. Plus, if you are doing these activities, then the size does not matter. Then the size does not matter. The asset size does not matter. First of all, core investment company. Core investment company, I told you they invest in their own group companies where the minimum such investments are 90%. Housing finance company, providing the finance for building the houses. Infrastructure finance company or infrastructure debt fund, both are covered in the middle layer. And lastly, standalone primary dealer who deal in government securities. All these companies are included in the middle layer. So first of all, deposit taking, non-deposit taking. Non-deposit taking where the asset size is greater than equal to 1000 crore. And lastly, sir, which companies did I say? Core investment company, housing finance company, infrastructure debt fund, infrastructure finance company, and lastly, standalone primary dealer. Sir, how do you remember these names so easily? Baba, I have a trick in mind. See, once your base is built, can I say your core is strong? Yes, sir, our core is strong. Once the core is strong, on this, what you can build? Sir, we can build the house, we can build the infra. We can build the house, we can build the infra. And when you are building the house or infrastructure, you are alone or people are there with you? Sir, when the house is getting built, you are alone. Once the house is ready, everyone comes along. So whenever you are building the house, you need to stand alone. So remember, stand alone primary dealer. Sir, why are you making us learn this? Because ICI asked this in exam. ICI a lot of time can ask this in exam in a form of MCQs and all to identify which layer this company will become a part of. Understood the point or not? Yes, sir. Now comes the next two types of layer which are very easy. Upper layer. Upper layer includes the top 10 NBFC based on the asset size which are identified by RBI. Again, MCQ point of view important. And top layer is generally empty. Top layer is ideally empty. So remember, top layer is generally empty, but still RBI can identify NBFCs to be included in top layer. Is everything till here clear to you? Yes or no? Yes, sir. So quickly come to your book. There are certain companies again which are exempt from RBI registration, but they are still doing the financial business but regulated by other regulators. So they come under the regulation of other regulator. These names you just need to read. So everyone please read with me. Mutual benefit companies, merchant banking companies, okay. Both are MBC. So remember, if this point come, they are not requiring RBI registration. MBC, mutual benefit company, merchant banking company. Stock exchange company like BSE, it is also covered by SEBI, so no requirement. Stock broking companies like Zerodha, they are also covered by SEBI. Venture capital fund, again covered by SEBI. Housing finance institution which are regulated by National Housing Board, they are exempt from RBI registration. Okay, sir. Nidhi companies, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Insurance company, Insurance Regulation Development Authority. Chit companies covered by Chit Fund Act. Alternate investment fund companies again covered by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Mortgage guarantee companies are again covered in this part. Now, sir, this is important from MCQ point of view. Core investment company with the asset size less than 100 crore. This does not require RBI registration. And even if the asset size is more than equal to 100 crore with no access to public funds, then also it does not require the RBI registration. So you just need to read these companies. In case MCQ is asked, you should know they don't require RBI registration. Then, sir, this NBFC classification, this is something we have already covered. Now, one example for you. If there is a housing finance company where the asset size is 800 crore, which layer it will be covered? Again, in the middle layer. Remember, in case you are doing these activities, asset size does not matter. Upper layer and top layer wala thing we have already covered. Now one question that ICI asked recently in an MTP, RTP. What, sir? Write a note on categorization of the NBFC carrying out specific activity. So here you just need to go in the flow. First of all, you will say whatever we discussed in the base layer. What was base layer? PA, P2P, account aggregator. PA means parent company, holding company, operating, non-operating. So non-operative financial holding company and no access to customer interface or public funds, they will always remain in the base layer. This point you already know. Yes, sir. First point done. Second point, middle layer. In the middle layer, just keep two NBFCs aside. Which two NBFC? Infrastructure Debt Fund and Standalone Primary Dealer. Infrastructure Debt Fund and Standalone Primary Dealer, they will always remain in the middle layer. Other NBFCs like Deposit Taking, Core Investment Company, Infrastructure Finance Company, Housing Finance Company, they can be in the middle layer or upper layer, but never in the base layer. Got it, sir? Third point. Remaining NBFCs. Which NBFCs? These names we have already studied conceptually, need to remember them. ICC, Investment Credit Company, Microfinance Institution, Factors, MGC, Mortgage Guarantee Company. They can be in any of the layer depending on the parameters. Parameters like their asset size and all. Okay, sir. Then they can become a part of any layer. Now, sir, how can we remember these lanes? These are very confusing names. So if you people watch cricket, who is the cricket body? ICC. Where is a famous cricket ground? MGC, Melbourne Cricket Ground. Yes or no? Yes, sir. So instead of MCG, you will say MGC. Now in ICC Cricket Ground, MGC, small players play. What is small? Microfinance institution, factors. Microfinance institution and factors. So remember these 4 points: ICC, MGC, small players like microfinance institution and factors. ICC means investment credit company, MGC means mortgage guarantee company, small players means microfinance institutions and factors. These are the remaining NBFC can be part of any layer. And lastly, they say government owned NBFC. Government includes lazy people. Say with me, government includes lazy people. So these lazy NBFCs can be only in the base layer or middle layer. They will never be in the upper layer. Because they are lazy, they will always stay in the base layer or the middle layer. They can never reach the upper layer. 4 points done. Yes, sir, 4 points done. Let's do a quick revision of the 4 points that we discussed in this. So the question can come categorization of the NBFC carrying out specific activity, write a note. So 4 points you need to write. First point, talk about the base layer, P2P, accounts aggregator, non-operative financial holding company. And last one was no access to the public funds, no customer interface. Second point, middle layer. First of all, keep the two NBFCs aside, infrastructure debt fund who finance the already completed infrastructure projects, and SPD, the standalone primary dealer. These will always be in the middle layer. Apart from this, all other NBFC of the middle layer, they can be in the middle layer or the upper layer. Third was related to cricket. ICC, MGC, factors and microfinance institution, they can be in any of the layer. And lastly, government owned NBFC can be a part of the base layer or the middle layer, never in the upper layer. Are all the 4 points clear? Yes, sir, all the 4 points are crystal clear to us. Thank you so much. So here this main part of categorization of NBFC is done. Now comes the main question, difference between a bank and an NBFC. And let me tell you, this question was asked from me after clearing CA in an NBFC interview. So 4 points of differences you will just need to learn from this sweet chart. Everyone please focus on the chart. What is the work of NBFC? Taking the deposits, and from this deposit either you can pay the money or you can give the loans. Talking about the deposit, it says NBFC cannot take demand deposit. Demand deposit means anytime the depositor can ask money. So this type of deposits NBFC can't take, like saving, current account deposits, not allowed. Now, if I am giving the deposit, I cannot withdraw it anytime. So is my deposit insured? Answer is no. The Deposit Insurance Credit Guarantee Corporation, that is DICGC, this insurance facility is not available. Oh, so neither you can give demand deposits, neither there is a deposit insurance available. 2 points related to deposits. Now, sir, with my deposit, can I make the payment? No. So with your bank account deposit, remember you can issue checks. Yes, sir. Here checks and payments are not allowed. Got it, sir. Now, what will the NBFC do? It will give the loan. So is there a requirement to give the loan to priority sector like agriculture, education, MSME? Answer is no. So these are your 4 points. Demand deposits not allowed, insurance facility not available, payment you cannot do, and loan to priority sector not required. So these are the 4 points you need to cover. Is everything till here clear to all of you? Yes or no? Yes, sir. Now everyone, please look at the board. Now we are going to cover the topic of prudential norms. Let me tell you, there are a lot of amendments in this topic. So whatever concepts I'm going to discuss, please understand them carefully. Very important from exam point of view. Okay, but these are very easy. Don't worry. Prudential norms include the concept of capital adequacy ratio, IRAC norms. IRAC means income recognition, asset classification, and provisioning. So whatever will be the classification, based on that you will create the provision. First of all, let's discuss about the capital adequacy ratio. Capital adequacy ratio you need to calculate by dividing the capital funds with risk-weighted assets and off-balance sheet item. Now, sir, how to calculate this capital funds? At tier 1 and tier 2 capital. So it says the minimum capital adequacy ratio should be 15%, including both tier 1 and tier 2. If I only talk about tier 1, it should be 10%, and this 10% will also become 12%. When? If the NBFC is lending against the gold jewelry. How can I say NBFC is lending against the gold jewelry? When such loans are more than equal to 50% of the financial assets. So these are the basics you need to know from MCQ point of view. Got it, sir. Now, sir, what is the difference between the tier 1 and tier 2 capital? You can say tier 1 is a high quality capital. So it includes the owned funds of the NBFC. Please focus on the board. That is the equity, free reserves, capital reserves, except revaluation reserve. Why, sir? Because revaluation reserve is covered as a part of tier 2 capital. Now, sir, this owned funds you will include minus the excess investments. What, sir? Minus the excess investments. Now, sir, what is the excess investment? Excess investments means investments in the shares of other NBFC. And investments in the shares, debentures, bonds, loans, lease finance, hire purchase finance in the subsidiary and other group companies. So this investment is allowed, but up to 10%, up to 10% of the net owned funds. But sir, if it is more than 10% of the owned funds, so excess investment will be disallowed. Now let me teach you how to calculate this. So you have the owned funds of 5 crore. Now how much you can invest into 10%? So up to 50 lakhs you can invest. Up to 50 lakhs you can invest in other NBFC and group companies. But here the company has invested in the share of other NBFC and group companies 2 crore. So what is the excess investment? Sir, the excess investment is 2 crore minus 10% of 5 crore. That comes 2 crore minus 50 lakh, that is 1.5 crore. This will be reduced. So for calculating the tier 1 capital, 5 crore. What is 5 crore? Owned funds minus excess investment. So 5 crore minus 1.5 crore, it comes out to be 3.5 crore. This is your excess investment that you need to remove. After removing the excess investment, you get the tier 1 capital of 3.5 crore. Does it make sense? Yes, sir. Now, sir, after this, you also need to add PDIs. What is a PDI? Perpetual debt instrument. Now, sir, this is only for NBFC non-deposit taking. These are allowed up to 15% of the aggregate tier 1 capital as at 31st March of the previous accounting year. So whatever is the tier 1 capital which is given for 31st March of the previous accounting year, up to 15%. Up to 15% is allowed here. Here what was the limit? Related to 10%. After 10 comes 15%. So that you remember, acha, above it was 10, below it was 15. So up to 15% of the aggregate tier 1 capital of the previous accounting year, 31st March. So let's say previous year ka 31st March tier 1 capital was 3 crore. Now this year the PDIs which were issued during the year, perpetual debt instrument issued during the year, they were 60 lakh. How much can become a part of tier 1? 15%. So 15% of 3 crore comes out to be 45 lakhs. This will become a part of tier 1 capital. Sir, but the investments were 60 lakhs. So out of 60 lakhs, 45 lakhs will become a part of tier 1 and the remaining 15 lakhs, it will become a part of tier 2. It will become a part of tier 2. This will become a part of your tier 2 capital. So if I talk about tier 1, let's revise quickly. Everyone please focus here. First of all, you take owned funds minus the excess investment. What is excess investment? Any investment which is above 10% of the owned funds. Any investment which is above 10% of the owned funds, it is an excess investment. These investment can be in the other NBFC or in the group companies or the group subsidiaries. Easy? Easy, sir. Apart from this, you can also add perpetual debt instrument, but here the limit is 15%. 15% of the previous accounting year ka 31st March ka tier 1 capital, that is 15% of the tier 1 capital of the previous accounting year ka 31st March. Does it make sense? Yes, sir. Just add both of them and you will get the tier 1 capital. Got it? Got it, sir. Now let's talk about the tier 2 capital. It includes the preference share other than CCPS. CCPS means compulsory convertible preference share. Sir, what about the compulsory convertible preference share? They become a part of tier 1 only. Okay, because they are convertible into equity only. So they will become part of tier 1. So apart from compulsory convertible preference share, they will become a part of tier 2. Then, sir, comes revaluation reserve. Revaluation reserves at a discounted rate of 55%. Revaluation reserve at a discounted rate of 55%. That means if the revaluation reserve is 20 lakhs, for tier 2, you will include 20 lakh ka 45%, that is 9 lakh rupees. Here ICI abhi has a discrepancy. ICI, instead of taking 45%, they are taking 55% as a part of tier 2 capital. But my interpretation says 20 lakh ka 45%, it will become a part of tier 2 capital. So right now, I have told you ICI's interpretation also, that they are taking 55% as a part of tier 2 capital. I have told you my interpretation also, that I feel 20 lakh ka 45% should be taken as tier 2 capital. If there will be more clarity on this in the coming days, I will share it on my Telegram channel. Please join it. Clear CA. Clear CA with Shubham Keswani. Okay. Clear CA with the Shubham Keswani. These board notes that I'm using for the revision and any clarity on this, I will share on this Telegram channel only. Okay. From exam point of view, you should follow ICAI only. Okay. For exam point of view, you should follow ICAI only. So right now they are taking the 55% wala thing ki 20 lakh into 55%, this will become a part of your tier 2 capital. Got it? Now talking about other provisions and loss reserves. So whatever general provisions they have created on standard assets and loss reserves, these will be limited to 1.25% of the risk weighted assets of the company. Again, whatever provisions, general provisions or loss reserves they are there, they will be limited to 1.25% of the risk weighted assets. Now, sir, if there are any hybrid instruments, what are hybrid debt instruments? Studied FR? Yes, sir. You study about compound financial instruments like debt and equity mix? Yes, sir. These will become part of tier 2 capital. Subordinated debt, which generally has a maturity of minimum 5 years, they are also considered a part of tier 2 capital. Now, sir, perpetual debt instruments for NBFC non-deposit taking, whatever was the remaining balance of tier 1 capital, that will become a part of tier 2 capital. So these are the basics that you need to consider. You understood the concept or not? Yes, sir, we understood. Now, sir, it says for NBFC base layer, it is not allowed to include perpetual debt instruments in the capital, that is tier 1 and tier 2. This is one basic thing that you need to understand. But sir, you said it non-deposit taking it is allowed. Non-deposit taking it is allowed. Baba, it is an exception. For NBFC base layer, see, base layer includes many NBFCs, na? It includes non-deposit taking with the asset size less than 1000 crore. Then I said PA, P2P, accounts aggregator, non-operative financial holding company, no access to customer fund, no public interface. Yes, sir. That is whole base layer. Out of that whole base layer, non-deposit taking NBFC can include the perpetual debt instrument. You're getting the basics or not? Yes, sir. Now, sir, I have framed one question for all of you. I have framed this question for all of you. Let's revise this question properly to understand how the tier 1 and tier 2 capital are calculated. So this is a calculation of tier 1 and tier 2 capital for a NBFC non-deposit taking with the asset size of 1500 crore. Acha, let me just clarify. If you are a non-deposit taking NBFC in base layer, still you are not allowed to include the perpetual debt instrument in capital. But if you are a non-deposit taking NBFC in the middle layer, then in that case you can include the perpetual debt instrument. So if you look at this question, it is a NBFC non-deposit taking with the asset size 1500 crore. That means it is greater than equal to 1000 crore. So it will be included in the middle layer. Understood the point? Yes, sir. Now, since it is in the middle layer, perpetual debt instruments can be included. Now, these are the points which are given here. Previous year ka tier 1 capital is also given as on 31st March and risk weighted assets are also given. Now, sir, let's calculate the tier 1 capital. So first of all, if you calculate the tier 1 capital, you will add the owned funds. Owned funds means equity capital, free reserves, capital reserves, excluding revaluation reserve. Revaluation will not come because it will become part of tier 2. So these things, three things you add and you come out to be 260 crore. Got it, sir. Now, sir, excess investment need to be calculated. So what is the investment in the shares of other NBFC and group companies? So investment in shares of other NBFC and group companies, these are 25 and 20, comes out to be 45 crore. How much was the investment allowed? 10% of 260 crore, that is 26 CR. This was the investment allowed. What is the excess investment? 19 CR. So this 19 CR will be removed. So 260 crore minus 19 CR, it will become a part of tier 1 capital. Does it make sense? Yes, sir. Now let's do the calculation of perpetual debt instrument. Perpetual debt instrument which were issued during the year, they were 30 CR. How much is allowed? Sir, previous year tier 1 capital का 15% is allowed. Previous year tier 1 capital का 15% is allowed. So first you took 10%. Now you are taking the limit of 15%. So 15% of 140 crore, that is the previous year tier 1 capital, it is equal to 21 crore. This will become a part of tier 1 capital. And the remaining balance of 9 crore, it will become a part of tier 2 capital. Understood the concept? Yes, sir. So 241 crore, that is the owned funds, plus perpetual debt instrument 21 crore, 262 crore becomes the tier 1 capital. Is the full calculation clear to you? Yes, sir. Now comes tier 2 capital. Revaluation reserve. What is the revaluation reserve ka value given? 4 crore. As per my interpretation, it should be 4 crore ka 45%, that is 1.8 crore. As per ICI, it should be 4 crore ka 55%, whatever is the value, they will take it. Got it, sir. Now comes perpetual debt instruments. Perpetual debt instrument, what is the given value which was required to be included in tier 2 capital? 9 crore. So it will become a part of tier 2 capital. Now comes preference shares. Where is the preference shares? Preference shares non-convertible 25 crore. Let's take the 25 crore. After this, there is general provisions and loss reserves, 15 crore. But what was the limit? रिस्क वेटेड एसेट्स का 1.25%, रिस्क वेटेड एसेट्स का 1.25%. So you will say general provisions and reserves amount is 15 crore, limit is 1.25% of risk weighted assets, that is 10 crore. So in the outer column you will take only 10 crore. Now sir, hybrid debt instruments and subordinate debts, as it is 35 and 50 you can take. So as it is 35 and 50 I have taken. So the total comes to 130.8 crore. Easy peasy? Yes, sir. This is how you calculate the tier 1 and tier 2 capital. How? I hope the concept is crystal clear to all of you. Yes or no? Yes, sir. Now everyone come with me. Now everyone come with me. Let's understand the risk weights. There is an amendment in this part. Again, important from MCQ point of view. Risk weight says that what is the risk? What are the percentage chances of losing the money on the asset? So in certain assets, there is 0% risk. In certain assets, there is a 20% risk. In certain, there is a 50% risk. In certain, there is a 100% risk. And now they say that in certain assets, there is a 125% risk. Oh my God. So sir, these risk weights you should also be aware about. Now what are the risk weights? Understand the feel. Because if you understand the feel, you will not have to cram the risk weights. If something is already realized, if something is related to the central government, if something is related to the state government, that is a state government security, there the risk is zero. Again, if it is already realized, if it is related to the central government, if it is a security of the state government or amount due from the central government or state government, the risk is zero. So if it is cash and bank, it is already realized, risk is zero. RBI approved security, risk is zero. Loans and advances which are fully secured or from employees, risk is zero, because if the employee doesn't pay, we will remove the employee or realize it from the salary. So here the risk is zero. TDS advance tax again paid to the government, you will get the benefit, risk is zero. Government interest on government security, risk is zero. State government security, risk is zero. Fund based claims to central government, risk is zero. Central government guaranteed advance, risk is zero. So everywhere where the government is involved, risk is zero. But there is an exception. Sir, what is the exception? Of 20%. If the advances have a state government guarantee and the default is less than 90 days, risk will be 20%. Oh, so just need to remember one exception. Otherwise, every government thing risk is zero. Got it, sir? Apart from this, where there is a government feel in a bank, that is a public sector bank. So if the public sector bank like SBI, Punjab National Bank, they have issued some bonds. On those bonds, if you have taken them as an asset, again the risk is 20%. So these 20% ka two things you need to remember. State government guaranteed advance where the default is less than 90 days, risk is 20%. Sir, what if the default is more than 90 days or equal to 90 days? It will go in 100% category. See, this is the residual category. Everything which is not covered here, it will go in 100% category. Got it, sir? If there is a public sector bank bond, again the risk is 20%. Now comes 50%. 50% risk is where there is a partnership. Partnership between the public and the private. Generally, we say na 50-50 partnership. Yes, sir. You can remember it like this. So the 50% risk is related to public-private partnership. Post-commercial operation date. These are generally the construction projects. Okay. These are the construction projects. So let's say public and private entities, these are working together to do some construction of road, highway, something like that. And 1 year has already passed off operation. That means over 1 year of operations have already happened. That means in that case, 50% risk will be there. And lastly, risk of 125%. When is the risk is of 125%? When it is a consumer related exposure. So if it is a consumer credit exposure, that is a retail loan, except housing loan, education loan, vehicle loan, or you can say gold loan, microfinance loan, or a SHG loan. SHG means self-help group loans. Except these loans, in this case, it will be 125%. Sir, why not housing loan? Because house is already a secured asset, na? Why you need to put 125% there? Got it, sir. Education is also considered to be a less riskier loan because generally people take education loan repaid back. Vehicle loan is also considered to be a secured loan. Gold loan, again considered to be a secured loan. Microfinance and self-help group, these are small entities. Generally, they need money. So again, to promote the loans to microfinance entities and self-help groups, they have excluded them from this category. So consumer credit exposure, that is retail loan, will always become a part of 125%. Similarly, credit card receivable. So many a times you must be getting calls from Bajaj Finance from their credit card. So those Bajaj Finance credit card that they sell to retail customers, consumer, there the risk is of 125%. Anything which is not covered in the above criterias, all others will go in 100% criteria. Got the point? Yes, sir. So please come to your book. Please come to your book. Now let's quickly revise it from the table given it from your book so that the things get crystallized in your mind. Cash and bank, 0. Approved security, 0. Loans, advances fully secured, loans to employees, TDS, advance tax, government security, fund-based claims to central government guarantee, state government security, risk is 0. But if there is a state government guarantee which is not in default for more than 90 days, 20%. Public sector banks bonds, 20%. 50-50 partnership, that means public private partnership and post commercial operations date infrastructure projects which are in existence over 1 year of operation, 50% risk. Consumer loans, 125%, and others will go into the category of 100%. Easy, sir. Now everyone, now we are going to cover the next part of the prudential norm, that is income recognition and asset classification. With this, the prudential norms wala part will be done. Are you ready? Yes sir, we are ready. Talking about the income recognition, game is very simple, as either the asset is a standard asset or it is a non-performing asset. Standard asset means still we have the hope that regular income will be coming from this asset. So we recognize the income on accrual basis. That means whenever it is due, we recognize it as a part of our P&L account. But if it is a non-performing asset, that means it is not performing. That means the asset is not generating the returns for us. So do you think income should be recognized on accrual basis? No. Income will be recognized on realization basis. And whatever interest you have accrued and it is unrealized till the date asset becomes NPA, that is a non-performing asset, the interest that you have accrued before, that will be reversed. It is simple P&L account debit to accrued interest. Whatever is the asset that you have created, reverse it off. Got it, sir. Now, sir, talking about the asset classification, this chart will be very helpful for you to understand it. It's very simple. There is a due date. From the due date till 180 days, asset is a part of standard category. Got it, sir. Once the 180 days is over, it becomes a part of NPA category. Now, when it becomes a part of NPA category, there are further subclassification like NPA substandard, NPA doubtful, NPA loss asset. So talking about the substandard first. From the date you become NPA, for 18 or 12 months, depending on the type of NBFC, you will become a part of substandard asset. Once this 18 or 12 months is over, you will become a part of doubtful asset. And once you feel that there is no chance of recovery from this asset, you will make the doubtful asset as a loss asset. Now, sir, this 12 months limit is for which NBFC? Middle layer and above. Got it, sir. Now this 180 days, it is also long gone. Earlier it used to be 180 days, but since it is your ICS study material, they have still written it as 180 days. 31st March 24, it has been changed to 150 days. 31st March 25, now it is changed to 120 days. And from 31st March 2026, this limit will be taken as 90 days. Now, sir, in exam, what limit to take? Ideally, they will not ask you to calculate what should be the NPA based on the number of days. They will give you the figure of NPA. Okay, they will give you the figure of substandard, loss and doubtful, and they will ask you to calculate the provision. But in case they want to test your days ka knowledge, ki are you able to remember the number of days or not? So they will give you the dates. Okay, that in the exam question, what date is applicable? Based on that date, you can decide NPA is based on 180 days, 150, or 90 or 120 or 90. Whatever is the date given in the question, based on that you can decide the number of days. You understood the point or not? Yes, sir, we got the point. Now, sir, what is the provisioning? Very simple. On the standard assets, it is 0.25% and 0.4%. Obviously, the higher percentage for higher NBFC. So for base layer, it is 0.25%. For middle layer and above, it is 0.4%. Bigger NBFC, bigger percentage. Now, sir, this provision that I am creating on the standard asset, do I need to reduce it from the advance value? Answer is no. It is not to be netted off from the advances. Therefore, it is shown under the contingent provision against standard assets in the balance sheet. So you will show it separately as a contingent provision on the liability side. Got it, sir? On the substandard asset, you need to create a provision of 10%. In case of doubtful, which is secured, these are the three limits which is given. So the limits are very simple. Up to 1 year, 20%. Doubtful up to 1 year. Okay. Doubtful 1 to 3 year, 30%. And doubtful more than 3 year, it is 50%. So just remember these limits like 10, 20, 30, 50. Say with me. 10, 20, 30, 50. 10 for substandard. 20 for up to 1 year doubtful. 30 for 1 to 3 year doubtful. And 50% for more than 3 years doubtful. Easy, easy, sir. But if your doubtful asset is unsecured, it is as good as a loss asset. It is as good as a loss asset. In both the cases, you create a provision of 100%. Easy peasy, easy peasy, sir. So this is one table. I wish every one of you to remember it. So if you want, you can take 1 minute, pause the video, remember all the limits, and then you can move on. With this, all your provisions which are related to prudential norms, these are completed. This NPA glide path I have already discussed. Doubtful percentage I have already discussed. Everything till here is done. Now let's begin with audit procedure wala part. Take 2 sips of water. Let's begin with it. Now everyone focus on the audit procedure. So till now, I hope all of you have understood the provisions for NBFC. Yes, sir. We have understood the basics of NBFC and the provisions for NBFC. Now we will start with the audit procedure. So the next 2 stages are performing the procedure and reporting, and then this chapter will be complete. Now talking about the audit procedure. First of all, understand the business of the company. Why do we need to understand the business activities? Remember in the classification of base layer, middle layer, top layer. For that classification, you need to know the business activity. If it is a peer-to-peer lending business, it will be a part of base layer. If it is a standalone primary dealer, middle layer. If it is a housing finance company, middle layer. Non-operative financial holding company, base layer. So unless you understand the business activity, how will you know which layer it needs to be classified? Because based on that layer wala thing, you decide the prudential norms. When will the asset become NPA? You need to take 12 months for substandard to become doubtful or 18 months. How are you looking at me? Baba, I told you na that 18 months you consider for a substandard asset to become doubtful, but 12 months you need to consider in case it is middle layer and above. Got it? So unless you understand NBFC is in base layer or middle layer, how will you decide how the NPA classification is to be done? Got it, sir? It is very important. So to understand the business of the company, you need to check the business documents, that is memorandum of association, articles of association. If that is not enough, you need to check the business policy and minutes of the meeting of the board and committees to see what are the business they are actually doing, so that you know the principal business activity, and the classification depends on it. Got it, sir? Once you have understood the business, then evaluate the internal control system. So understand the accounting system and the related internal control. Most important control is the system of recovery. Sir, what should be the system of recovery? They should review the advances and then monitor whether they are regularly paying the money or not. If they are not paying the money, entity should follow up. If they are not following up, it will lead to high level of NPAs. So just go with the flow. Accounting system, internal control. Here the system of recovery is very important. System of recovery means monitoring the advances. They are paying the money, fine. If they are not paying the money, follow up. If you are not following up, it will lead to high level of NPAs. Easy, easy, sir. Then, sir, you need to check the registration with RBI. How can I check the registration with RBI? Take a copy. Take a copy of the certificate of registration. Sir, if they say registration is pending, take a copy of the application form. Got it, sir. Acha, for registration, you need to comply with minimum net owned fund requirement, 10 crore. Then if you are an NBFC of base layer, that is P2P, AA, non-operative financial holding company. No, sir. No customer interface, no public funds. Limit is 2 crore only. If you are an infrastructure wala NBFC, limit is 300 crore. So this minimum net owned fund requirement you need to check. Now, sir, if the NBFC holds public deposits, you remember in case of bank, we have covered a concept like statutory liquidity ratio. Yes, sir. If a bank has deposits, rather than lending the whole deposit, you need to keep a specified percentage in the form of liquid assets. Yes or no? Yes, sir. Similarly, if the NBFC holds public deposits, it is required to invest specified percentage in liquid assets, just like SLR. they need to file a quarterly return on this with RBI. And lastly, as an auditor, you need to check all the above compliance. Easy, easy, sir. So three basic things: understand the business, internal control system, and registration with RBI. Easy, easy, sir. After this comes the most important direction from exam point of view, NBFC Acceptance of Public Deposit Directions 2016. Now, sir, tell me one thing. Can any NBFC accept the money as it is? No. For accepting the public deposit, for doing such responsible thing, you need to have a credit rating. You need to have a credit rating from an approved credit rating agency. So as an auditor, what I will check? The credit rating. I will take a copy of credit rating. So if the credit rating upgrades or downgrades, NBFC also has to increase or decrease the deposits. Easy, easy, sir. Now they say, let's say this is the NBFC ka credit rating and this is the minimum investment grade. That is the danger level. So if the credit rating downgrades below the minimum investment grade, then it has to regularize the deposit. Everyone do with me? Regularize the deposit. How do they regularize the deposit? Let's understand the concept. So it says there is a ceiling on the amount of deposits which is linked to the credit rating given by the credit rating agency. You can take a copy of the credit rating and check if the public deposits are as per the rating. Easy, easy, sir. In case of upgrading or downgrading, increase or decrease the deposits as per the revised rating. If the downgrading is below the danger level, that is minimum investment grade, then regularize the excess deposit. How, sir? First of all, whatever is the existing, it will go till maturity. Okay. Existing deposits will run off till maturity. Can I accept something fresh? No. Can I renew? No. So stop accepting the fresh deposits and renewing the existing ones. When it is a time of renew only when the borrower gives the consent. So no mature deposit renew without the consent of the depositor, not the borrower, depositor. Got it, sir? Are these three basic points clear? Yes, sir. Plus, you also need to report to RBI. Report within 15 working days to the regional office where the NBFC is registered to the RBI. Easy points? Yes, sir. So these are the basic things that you need to consider. Come to the question bank and come to question number 1. This question was asked in November 22 exam and MTP April 23. It says this company faced a series of downgrades by the credit rating agency. The rating was cut from D to D from A4. So from a good rating of A4, it came down to D because it was in default or expected to be in default soon. What aspects the auditor should consider in relation to the activity of public deposit, particularly in relation to downgrading of credit facility? So these are the basics that we just discussed that you need to write in this answer. So let's revise the answer quickly. Ceiling on deposits is linked to the credit rating. Upgrading or downgrading, it will increase or reduce the deposit based on revised rating. If it is downgraded below the minimum investment grade, regularize the excess deposit. How to regularize? No fresh, no renewal. Renewal only on voluntary consent. Existing deposit run off till maturity. So all types of deposits covered: fresh, renewal and existing. And lastly, report to RBI within 15 working days. To whom? Regional office of the RBI where NBFC is registered. Easy peasy? Yes, sir. 5 marks question done. Awesome. Now everyone come with me. Come with me to the next part. Sir, apart from all this, there are some basic points that you need to consider. On the deposits, you pay interest. To check the interest calculation, no excess interest should be paid. Whatever deposits you accept or renew only after a written application from the depositor in the form supplied by NBFC. Check the deposit register whether the particulars are agreeing with the receipts. There should be investment in liquid assets. Whatever investment is there, it should be in the safe custody. Check the returns in a timely manner. Remember, I told you quarterly returns need to be filed by RBI for liquid assets and deposit. Yes, sir. Plus, make sure if the NBFC is not accepting or holding any public deposit, board resolution is passed. So this is one critical point that you should remember. So if the NBFC says, no, we don't accept public deposit. No, we have not accepted any deposit. Ask them to show the board resolution. They have to pass a board resolution for the same. One more small point, everyone, you need to consider. This is one special point also that you need to consider as a part of the addition. In case you are a group holding investment company, once more, group holding investment company, that means you are holding the shares of your subsidiaries and all. So has the NBFC passed a board resolution for the same? Sir, for what? For investing in the shares of group companies. Plus, it needs to, as an auditor, you need to take a further undertaking. Further undertaking that it will not trade in the shares, or it will not accept any public deposits during the year. So this is one basic thing that you just need to understand in case ICA asks from MCQ point of view. Got it? Got it, sir. Now comes the last audit procedure. Everyone very, very happy. Audit of compliance with prudential norms. So prudential norms is something we have already discussed. So let's cover this topic in a good flow. Basic thing is checking the compliance with prudential norms. Prudential norms means capital adequacy, IRAC. Capital adequacy, income recognition, asset classification. Based on that, provision for doubtful debts. Now you check the compliance with accounting standard. One more basic point, prohibition to grant loans against the security of own shares. For example, there is a Bajaj Finance company, which is an NBFC, and there is a shareholder. Now, sir, can it happen that Bajaj Finance give the loan to the shareholder and in turn as a security shareholder gives the Bajaj Finance shares? Can it happen? Answer is no, it is prohibited. So prohibition to grant loans against the security of own shares. So these are the basic prudential norms. Once more, come on, capital adequacy, IRAC, accounting standards, prohibition to grant loans against the security of own shares. Now, based on this asset classification and provision for doubtful debts, let's cover the second point. Second point says verify that the advances are properly classified as standard, substandard, doubtful, loss asset, and proper provision is made. 2 points done? Yes, sir. Now, based on these three baddie assets like NPAs, two more points we can cover. Whatever is the unrealized income, should it be taken to PNL on accrual basis? No. For NPAs, income is recognized on realization basis. Unrealized income should not be taken on PNL on accrual basis. Got it, sir. Last thing, whatever was the NPA in the previous year, check it in the current year also it is a NPA. That means check if all the NPA accounts in the previous year continue in the current year also. If not, whether it has become standard or regular as per the direction. So 4 points are checking the compliance with basic prudential norm. Then second point is related to asset classification, provision for doubtful debt. Third point and fourth point are related to NPA only. Unrealized income, previous year, current year. And last point is a little different. Last point is a little different for the NBFCs which are granting or intending to grant demand loans. Sir, yes. Sir, you said NBFC cannot accept demand deposit. But now you are saying they are granting demand loan. Arey Baba, both are different na. As a NBFC, I cannot accept demand deposit. Okay. But when it comes to granting, I can grant demand loan. That means NBFC is playing safe. They don't want the tension of taking demand deposit where the depositor can anytime come and take the money back. But when it comes to giving the tension, giving a demand loan that whenever NBFC wants, it can take the money back. So that demand loan is allowed, but demand deposit is not allowed. Okay. So NBFC is granting or intending to grant demand loan. For that, board of directors need to frame a policy for that. Okay. So these are the 5 points of prudential norms that you want to consider. So if you want, you can pause this video for 1 minute, recall the 5 points and then continue with me for this revision. Okay. Now, sir, comes cute two topics. Audit checklist for a NBFC investment and credit company. These 5 points you can consider from exam point of view. Let's revise these 5 points together. As you know, it is an investment credit company. So the main focus is investment. So let's cover the investment in shares and cover 5 points from it. First of all, shares. If the shares are physically available, which is not generally the case in today's world, physically verify the shares held. But if they are with the bank, take a certificate of the bank, easy. Now, sir, if the shares are with the depository, like today there are depository like CDSL, NSDL, okay, you can take the confirmation with them. So for the shares with the depository, obtain the confirmation. So physical shares, depository shares. And lastly, how you buy the shares? Through a broker. So test check the bills or contract notes received from the broker with respect to the stock market prices. So 3 points done: physical verification of the shares, depository confirmation, and the bill notes or contract notes. Whatever price is given in the contract note, that you can check with the stock market quotation. Now, sir, whenever you need to make an investment, you need to pass a board resolution. So as an auditor, I will check the board resolution. Why? To see if it is a long-term or a short-term investment, because accounting depends on that. Because ultimately the accounting depends on that. So verify the board minutes for purchase or sale of investment. Check the board resolution that investment is short-term or long-term, so that you can see whether AS 13 or any other accounting standard has been complied with. Easy, sir. So these are the 5 points that you can cover for NBFC ICC. Apart from this, if you want to cover other points also, you can just read through them. Got it, sir. One more topic which is important from exam point of view is classification of frauds by NBFC. It was asked in RTP November 19. I say asked a short note on classification of frauds. So let's understand what are the different types of frauds. First is misappropriation, that is stealing of assets, or there is a criminal breach of trust. Then it says fraudulent encashment of fixed deposits through forged signature and all, through forged instruments, manipulation of books or fictitious entries. Unauthorized credit facilities for illegal gratification. Sir, how can it happen? Let's say there are two people. One is Mr. Greedy, who is a manager in a NBFC, and one is a Mr. Needy who needs a car loan. Mr. Greedy is not giving the car loan to Mr. Needy. So what happens? Mr. Needy says, you give me a loan of 10 lakh rupees. I will give you a diamond necklace worth rupees 2 lakh in return. Okay? As a gratification. Is it allowed? Answer is no. This is fraud. This is fraud that once you are taking the loan and in another way, you are giving illegal money to the other person. So it is saying unauthorized credit facilities for reward or illegal gratification. This is not allowed. Negligence or cash shortage, again the cash is getting stolen. Cheating, forgery, or irregularities in forex transaction or any other type of fraud. So these are the namings of fraud that they have given. Now sir, it says for point D and point F, it is not considered as fraud unless the intention is proved. But if there is a cash shortage of more than 10,000, it is a fraud. Intention doesn't matter. And if it is more than 5,000 and someone else has detected, someone else means it is detected by the management, auditor, inspector, not reported by cashier, then also it is a fraud. So how will we remember these names? We have understood the points, but how will we remember these names? So just remember it like this. Fraud happened with one of our class students. His name was Mr. Sayyam. So with Mr. Sayyam, a fraud happened. Who did the fraud? There was a miss. And that miss in little fun did some cheating with Sayyam. And is this something regular? Answer is no. This is the irregular. So remember this fraud miss fun mein did cheating with Sayyam, and this is irregular. Miss means misappropriation and criminal breach of trust. Okay, sir. Fun means F for fraudulent encashment through forged instruments, U for unauthorized credit facilities for illegal gratification, N for negligence and cash shortage. Cheating means she did cheating with him. So cheating and forgery, and N for negligence and cash shortage, and this is the irregular thing. So irregular forex transaction. Okay, so once you understand the points, remembering becomes easy. So again, if you want, you can pause the video for 1 or 2 minutes, learn these points and get back with me. Got it, sir? Now, sir, we have already covered this NBFC ICC, that is investment and credit company wala points. Now I want to cover one more topic. Okay, sir. This is related to NBFC peer-to-peer lending. NBFC peer-to-peer lending. If you want to do the audit of NBFC peer-to-peer lending, what shall be the audit procedure? This point is given in your question bank, test your understanding question. So let's do it properly. Okay, sir. So first of all, you people tell me, this peer-to-peer lending NBFC is covered in which layer? Sir, it is covered in the base layer. This is we already know. Got it, sir. Now, how will you do the audit procedure? First of all, go in the flow. What is the first audit procedure? Understand the business. So we also understand the business, that it is providing a marketplace for the participants for lending and borrowing. No lending on its own. Okay. I hope all of you understand the diagram of P2P. There is a lender. Lender gives the money to the NBFC. P2P. And P2P gives the money to the borrower. So NBFC P2P is providing a marketplace where the lender gives the money to the P2P and P2P gives to the borrower. Second thing, you need to check the board policy. Sir, board policy, where you need to decide the criteria for becoming a lender and borrower. So the criteria can be that the lender should have a ITR, minimum income of certain amount. Borrower also needs to file their ITR. Got it, sir? Then they need to provide their Aadhaar card details. So there can be some minimum criteria that they can have. Now, sir, in case any of them has any problem, they should have grievance redressal and compliance mechanism. So these two things should be there. Criteria for the borrower lender. And if they are unhappy, they will have a grievance redressal and compliance mechanism. Got it, sir? Last 3 points are related to RBI. They are in a flow. To become an NBFC, you need a certificate of registration. Once you get the certificate of registration, you need to do your lending and borrowing. So follow the guidelines of RBI. Arey, that is the business na. Lending and borrowing. So whatever lending and borrowing guidelines are there, you need to follow of RBI. And last May, you need to report to RBI. So go with the flow. Registration, lending borrowing guideline, reporting. Come on. Registration, lending borrowing guideline, reporting. Once more. Registration, lending borrowing guideline, and reporting. So these are your 6 points. Done. So first of all, understand the business, board policy for their eligibility criteria, and grievance redressal. And RBI wala 3 points: registration, that is a minimum net owned funds, certificate of registration. Second thing was lending and borrowing guideline, and the last thing was, come on, reporting. Last May you do the reporting, na? Yes, sir. So these are the 6 points you need to consider. So if you want, you can just go to your question bank. This is the question number 1 done. So in this, they have given the whole paragraph about P2P lending, and they say which layer does the NBFC fit as per the scale based regulation. You'll say base layer. Few audit procedure, we have already learned 6 audit procedure. That is more than enough. Got it, sir. Now you can take 2 sips of water and get ready with me for the next topic, that is related to reporting. That is related to the reporting, and this is the last stage of the chapter. Very happy, sir. So get ready. So in this part of auditor's duty to report to the board of director, this is included in para 3. This is the para 3 of RBI directions, filing of supervisory returns. Do we need to remember this name? Answer is no. You just need to remember that there is a para 3 in which auditor's duty is included to report to the board of director. Now this duty to report is divided in 3 areas. Duty to report in case of all NBFCs. Then the duty to report in case of NBFCs which are holding or accepting public deposits. And lastly, it covers the NBFCs not accepting any deposit. So first of all, let's talk about all the types of NBFC. So first of all, you need to report if the company is fulfilling the 50/50 test. That means it is a non-banking financial company, whether it has obtained the certificate of registration or not. This is something you need to report. Got it, sir? Second thing, if it is holding a certificate of registration, then you need to check whether it is entitled as per the principal business criteria. That means 50/50 test as on 31st March. Come on, as on 31st March of the year. So that means we don't have to check the full year. Answer is no. You don't have to check the full year. You only have to check as on 31st March of the year. And lastly, you need to check whether it is meeting the net owned fund criteria as per the master direction. So 3 things you need to report for all the NBFC to the board of director. First thing is whether the NBFC is carrying on the NBFC activity without any certificate of registration. Got it, sir? So if it has obtained the certificate of registration, whether it is eligible in these 2 cases that we discussed in the beginning of this revision session also. Part 1 is about the principal business criteria, that is the 50/50 test as on 31st March of the year. Second thing is whether it has the minimum net owned funds as laid down in the master direction. What was the minimum net owned fund? 10 crore. 2 crore for P2P, AA, no access to public funds, no customer interface. And lastly, 300 crore for infrastructure wala NBFCs. Then sir, it says you also need to take a certificate from statutory auditor. Now this certificate of statutory auditor will cover what? Please focus on the board. Regarding the position of the company again at the end of the financial year. Got it, sir? This will be submitted to regional office of the Department of Non-Banking Supervision because it is a NBFC. Now, sir, this regional office will be of which region in which the NBFC is registered. Within how many days? Within 5 working days from the date of signing the report, but maximum by 31st December of the same year, so that it is done in the same year only. Okay, sir. Now talking about the NBFC holding or accepting the public deposit. Now, sir, do we need to learn all of it? Answer is no. Just take a chill pill, relax. ICAI is never asking these 12 points in one question. Max to max, they can ask it as a part of MCQ based case study or a case study based question on 1 or 2 points. Okay? So you just need an understanding of all the points. Are you there with me? Yes, sir, we are there with you. So the first point is for public deposit NBFC. So whether the public deposit are within the limits, got it, sir. If they are more than the limit, whether they are regularized in the manner provided in the direction. Regularized means if your credit rating is reduced, you are also reducing your deposit. Then, sir, whether they are accepting the public deposit without minimum investment grade rating. Remember, I told you there is a danger level if below it the rating reduces. you need to regularize the deposits. So whether it is accepting the deposits without minimum investment grade rating from approved institution, then whether the capital adequacy ratio is correct and comply with the minimum requirement. What was the minimum requirement? 15%. Out of this, tier 1 should be 10%, but this will become 12% if you are lending against the gold jewelry. That means more than equal to 50% of the assets are through lending against gold jewelry only. Got it, sir? Then say it says for NBFC covered in clause 3, that means there is no minimum investment grade rating. So whether the credit rating for fixed deposit schemes is in force, plus the outstanding deposits if they exceed the limit of the credit rating agency. Plus you talk about violations and default. Violations on the restrictions of accepting the public deposit, default on paying the interest or principal, then it has complied with the prudential norms. Prudential norms means capital adequacy ratio, asset classification, income recognition, provisioning. These are the basic things that you need to report on. Then you report whether it has complied with the liquid asset requirement. Because it has taken deposit, it need to keep certain percentage in the form of liquid asset. So whether it has complied with this requirement, plus it has filed with RBI NBS 3 return. Then again the return on deposit has been filed, that is DNBS 01. Again I am saying it, DNBS 01, that is DNBS 01. Again this name you need to remember from exam point of view. Then report whether quarterly return on prudential norms has been filed. And lastly, if they have opened or closed any branches, offices, or appointed an agent, whether they had done followed as the requirements of the direction. Which direction? We are talking about public deposit. So our favorite direction, NBFC acceptance of public deposit, Reserve Bank direction 2016. Got it? Got it, sir. Lastly, talking about NBFC not accepting deposit, I told you in the beginning of the lecture, whenever you are not accepting deposit, you need to pass a board resolution. So check, report whether board of directors have passed a board resolution for not accepting the deposit. And still report whether they accepted any deposit during the year. Got it, sir? Then two general points. These were two specific points for not accepting the deposit. Yes or no? Yes, sir. Now focusing on two general points. What are the general points? Whether company has complied with the prudential norms. What are the prudential norms? IRAC, income recognition, asset classification, provision for doubtful debts, plus again capital adequacy ratio wala point, same point we are focusing here. Capital adequacy ratio correct and comply with the minimum requirement. This is filed in NBS 7 for a non-deposit taking NBFC. Plus in the capital adequacy ratio you refer to the capital funds and risk weighted asset. This you will talk about. And lastly, one odd point, whether NBFC is correctly classified as a NBFC microfinance institution. So these are the 5 points that you need to consider. Now let's revise all these points with this chart. Focus here. So now whatever we covered, let's revise it through this chart. Everyone please focus on the board. Now we'll be revising all the concepts with this chart. Okay. Please focus here. So it says auditor's duty to report to the board of directors as per para 3. First of all NBFC. So you need to report whether the company has taken the certificate of registration. If the answer is yes, then tell whether it is entitled to hold as per the principal business criteria as on 31st March of the year. Then tell whether it is holding the net owned fund criteria. So these two things that every NBFC has to fulfill, these two things you will check. Then the statutory auditor certificate about the position at the end of the financial year, that is on the 31st March. Whom to submit? Regional Office, Department of Non-Banking Supervision of RBI. Then sir, by when we have to submit? 5 working days from the date of audit report, maximum by 31st December of the same year. So these 3 things are common for all NBFC. Now sir, talking for deposit taking NBFC, first points related to the limit. Check whether the public deposits are within the limit. If they are more than the limit, more than the quantum, whether they were regularized properly. Then check if the public deposits have been accepted without minimum investment grade rating. Okay sir. Then check the credit rating of the FD scheme, whether it is in force, plus the aggregate outstanding deposits if they are more than the limit of the credit rating agency. Again, you need to report that. Then you report about the violations or default, whether it has violated any restriction on accepting the public deposit, whether any default in paying the interest or principal due. Then you report about the returns. 3 returns you need to consider from MCQ point of view. Liquid assets, NBS 3. Deposits, D for deposit, D for DNBS 01. Okay, sir. Then prudential norms, quarterly return filed and compliance with the prudential norm. Lastly, about the branches, any opening, closing, appointing of agent, whether they have complied with the direction. Which direction? Public deposit direction 2016. Lastly, for non-deposit taking NBFC, there are some basic requirements. whether the board resolution has been passed for not accepting the public deposit, still whether it accepted any public deposit during the year. Then two general points: prudential norms, capital adequacy ratio. Prudential norms, capital adequacy ratio. Capital adequacy ratio, correct, plus comply with the minimum requirement. And then you check annual statement for capital funds and risk asset ratio in NBS 7. And lastly, one odd point: whether it is correctly classified as microfinance institution. Are the points crystal clear to all of you? Yes, sir. Now on this, come to your question bank. Come to your question bank. Let's do a question on this concept. So in your question bank, there will be this question number 8, Karma Private Limited, which is a non-deposit taking. Just give me a moment. Yes, please focus on this question. So in few questions of NBFC, there are certain amendments. Don't worry, I will share this amended PDF for all of you on the Telegram channel so that you can refer the same. So it says Karma Private Limited is a non-deposit taking NBFC registered with the RBI. Okay, got it, sir. Statutory auditor of the company is required to give a report to the board of director. What shall be the content of the auditor's report to the board? Now, sir, in this case, what points will come? First of all, you will include the points which are for all the NBFC. Second, you will include the points which are for non-deposit taking NBFC. So first of all, for all NBFC, you are required to report whether NBFC is doing the non-banking financial activity without a certificate of registration. If they are doing so, you need to report the same. Got it, sir. Second thing, if the company is holding the certificate of registration, whether it is entitled as per the principal business criteria as on 31st March of the year. Third thing, whether it has the minimum net owned funds or not. Then, sir, the points which are related to non-deposit taking NBFC. First of all, board resolution. Second thing, whether still it accepted any public deposit during the year or not. Got it, sir. And third thing, you report about the prudential norms. So do we also need to report about the capital adequacy ratio? Answer is yes, you can also report about the same. Then, sir, in case you have any unfavorable statement or qualified statement, you need to mention the reasons for the same. So these are the basic reporting requirements you need to consider in this case. Easy question? Yes, sir, very easy question. Now, I think talking about the reporting wala part, all the points are done. One more point that you need to consider here is this, which I already taught you. Let me discuss it again. As per SA 705, whenever you give a modified opinion that is disclaimer, adverse or qualified, do you need to tell the reason about it? Answer is yes. This reason is provided in basis for modified opinion para. Similarly, if there is a NBFC in which any items of the para 3 that we discussed above, it is unfavorable or qualified, you need to mention the reason for unfavorable or qualified statement. Easy, sir. If you are unable to express opinion, just like disclaimer of opinion, you need to give the reasons for the same. Now comes a 5-star topic of the day: obligation for the auditor to give an exception report. Again, there is a small amendment in this part. Everyone, please focus on the board. Got it, sir. This says exception report to RBI. It says if any statement in the para 3 that we discussed above, if it is unfavorable or qualified, or NBFC has not complied with these 3 things. See, all three things going on. Para 3, not complied with any of these 3 things. Sir, what are these 3 things? Chapter 3B. Chapter 3B of RBI Act, Act number 2 of 1934. Here also 3. NBFC, our favorite direction, acceptance of public deposit direction 2016. And the new directions are master direction RBI. Say with me, master direction RBI. Master direction RBI. NBFC scale based regulation 2013. Master direction RBI. NBFC scale based regulation 2013. Okay? I think it should be 2023. Let me just check. Yes, it should be 2023 because it is the new amendment. Okay. So here you need to say if it has not complied with chapter 3B of RBI Act, bracket open, Act number 2 of 1934. Got it, sir. Then second point you say our favorite direction, NBFC acceptance of public deposit direction 2016. And after 7 years, new direction, Reserve Bank of India master direction, which is related to scale based regulation. Do this action with me. Scale based regulation, that is a below base layer, middle layer, upper layer, top layer, scale based regulations 2023. Got it? Got it, sir. So if there is a non-compliance with the same, you need to report. Sir, whom? Same party that you reported when the NBFC credit rating fall below the minimum investment grade. So report the non-compliance to regional office, Department of Non-Banking Supervision of RBI, which regional office where the NBFC is registered. Now, you need to report only the contravention because it is an exception report. So when you are reporting the exception, only the contravention need to be reported. So only the contravention of RBI Act and the direction need to be reported. Don't include any statement of compliance for any portion. So remember three things: when, where, only contravention. Say with me: when, where, only contravention. When there is a non-compliance with para 3 or non-compliance with these three things, you report. To whom or where to report? To the regional office of Department of Non-Banking Supervision of RBI. Got it, sir? Same region where your registered office is situated. And the last point is only the contravention. No statement of compliance to be included. Very, very important question. Now let's do one more question on this part. Please come to question number 3. So question number 3, first part, which has been asked in July 21, September 22 MTP, October 20. This is a very simple question which clearly asks you to report the exceptions to the RBI. Got it, sir? Clearly talking about the exception reporting. Here you can see the keyword. Second question is a good question which is there in your ICAI ka study material. Very, very classic question. It says there is a company called Krishna Private Limited which is in the business of selling the computer parts. Is it a NBFC? Sir, prima facie, it is not a NBFC. Okay, let us read it further. Company is fulfilling the principal business criteria. That means 50-50 test. Financial assets are more than 50%. Financial income is more than 50%. What is the obligation? Now understand the question properly. Obligation of the statutory auditor in such scenario. Are they directly asking you about the exception report? No. They are asking you what should you do. So now tell me, what will you do as an auditor? Sir, here the company is fulfilling the 50-50 test and clearly it has not taken the registration. Oh, so if it has not taken the registration, can I say in the para 3, first part where you report about all the NBFC, you are required to report whether the company has obtained the certificate of registration or not. Sir, where did we study it? Are Baba, in para 3, this point for all NBFC, you are required to report na, whether company has obtained the certificate of registration. Yes. So here you will report company has not obtained the certificate of registration, even though it is passing the 50-50 test. So it is fulfilling the principal business criteria, so qualifies NBFC, hence required to obtain a certificate of registration. Because it has not obtained, it is an obligation to submit a exception report to RBI. Now, sir, all the points of exception report will come as it is in this point. You got the concept or not? Yes, sir, we understood the point. All the points will come as it is. Good question. Yes, sir. Now, after this exception report wala topic, I don't think much topics are left. Only one easy topic is there. That is the difference between the division 2, that is the Ind AS that you study in FR, and division 3 Ind AS for NBFC. Let's understand all the points first and then I will tell you what is the technique to remember them. Please focus on the board. NBFC is allowed to present the balance sheet items in the order of liquidity. Liquidity means cash will come first and PP will come at the end. Got it, sir? Then, sir, they have to disclose by way of notes item of other income or expense more than 1% of total income. This happens in your NBFC. This happens in base of NBFC. But what you study in FR, that is the division 2, it says any item which is more than 1% of revenue or 10 lakh, whichever is higher, that you need to disclose separately. Got it, sir? So here it is revenue, here it is total income only. Got it, sir? Then you talk about the receivable. Any receivable due from a LLP where the director of NBFC is a partner or a member, you need to disclose it separately. Another point of trade receivable is wherever there is a significant increase. Wherever there is a significant increase in the credit risk or credit impaired, basically these are bad debts. Again, you need to separately disclose the same. Lastly, you will talk about items of revenue from operations and OCI. They have to be shown in the notes, not only the notes, but also on the face of the P&L. Got it, sir? And lastly, if there are any statutory reserves like security premium, which you can't distribute as dividend, capital reserves, which you can't distribute as dividend. So whenever there are restrictions on the distribution of statutory reserves, they need to be disclosed. I hope all the points are crystal clear to you. Yes, sir. So how to remember this? Simply imagine a balance sheet and a P&L. In the balance sheet, first of all, the items in the order of liquidity. When you go to the P&L, what is there in the P&L? On the top, revenue and OCI. So all the items of revenue, OCI in the notes, also in the face of P&L. From revenue, when to come to balance sheet. What is the balance sheet item related to revenue? Receivable. So 2 points of receivable. Receivable from the LLP where the director of NBFC is a partner or a member. Easy, sir. Receivables where there is a significant increase in the credit risk. Go okay, sir. Now come back to the P&L. Lastly, in the P&L, you talk about the other items which are more than 1% of the total income. And last May, you talk about the statutory reserves. Last point is reserves. Whatever is left out is reserves. So statutory reserves, wherever any condition or restrictions for distribution, that should be disclosed. So this is how you can remember all the 6 points. So if you want, you can quickly pause the video for 2 minutes, learn the 6 points in the flow, and then continue with me. If you come to your question bank, there is a direct question on this part. Question number 2, asked many times, November 19, November 23, and soon in your exams. Clear hai? Clear, sir. One more question which is related to this concept is your question number 3. Question number 3, it says you are an auditor of a deposit taking NBFC, and this NBFC has been identified by RBI in the upper layer, okay, and required to prepare the financials as per the Ind AS. Ind AS Division 3 of Schedule 3. Got it, sir. Now, sir, they have given this extract of the financials, that is the extract of revenue from operation. Then they said one of the other expenditure of manpower outsourcing of 99.50 crore, it has been included in other expenditure, not separately. So do they comply with or do they meet the requirement of Division 3? So as per Division 3, you are required to see whether any other income or expenditure is more than 1% of the total income. So if you see the total income, this is 10,000 crore. So 10,000 crore ka 1% comes out to be 100 crore. But this manpower expenditure is 99.50 crore only. So do you need to show it separately? Answer is no, you don't need to show it separately. So are they complying with the Division 3 requirement? Answer is yes, they are meeting and they are complying with the Division 3 requirement. There is no problem in this case. Easy, sir. Now in this book, only thing that is left with the Ind AS, that whatever is the Ind AS rules, you just need to comply with that. Talking about Caro 2020 reporting, this we already study separately in Caro 2020. So you can refer the Caro 2020 ka revision lecture. Only thing from NBFC point of view that you need to understand is clause 3 and clause 16 of the Caro 2020 are applicable to it. Got it, sir? And in clause 3 specifically, sub clause A and sub clause E are not applicable. Okay, so sub clause A, which used to talk about that whatever are the loans during the year, you need to divide them between subsidiary, associate, joint venture, and entities other than subsidiary, associate, joint venture. And clause E specifically talked about whatever loans were due to be received during the year, but you refreshed. Refreshed, that means you renewed the loan, you extended the loan, or you issued a fresh loan. Then in that case, you need to mention the amount of loan or percentage to total loan. These two sub clauses are not applicable. Otherwise, all the sub clauses are applicable. So this part you can cover from the Caro 2020 ka video. Now, sir, one question which is given in ICAI study material plus MTP November 24, I am discussing in this revision. It says AF Limited is a NBFC in the business of accepting the public deposit and giving the loans since 2015. Since 2015, they have been carrying on this business. Got it, sir? Net owned funds of the NBFC are 1.5 crore. They don't have the registration certificate from RBI and they have applied it on 30th March 2024. Company appointed Mr. Kabra as the statutory auditor, advised the auditor regarding the audit procedure with reference to Caro 2020. Audit procedure and reporting requirement with respect to Caro 2020. So first of all, you tell me which clause will be applicable. Clause 16. Because clause 16 talked about 4 things. First 2 things are related to registration. Whether the company is required to be registered under section 45 IA, registration karwaiye in the RBI Act 1934, and if yes, whether the registration is obtained or not. Second point is also related to registration, whether it is carrying on non-banking financial or housing finance activity without any certificate of registration. So the first 2 points are related to registration only. The next 2 points are related to CIC. Whether company is a core investment company defined in the RBI regulation. If yes, whether it fulfills the criteria. If it is exempted, whether it fulfills that criteria. And last one says if it a group means parent company, subsidiary, associate. There is more than one CIC. How many CIC are there in the group? Indicate the number as a part of this reporting requirement. So these 4 reporting requirements are covered in clause 16 para 3 Caro 2020 that we do in Caro 2020 chapter. Now, sir, which clause is applicable in this case? The case that we are studying is this one. Whether the company is required to be registered under section 45 IA, answer is yes. If you are doing non-banking financial activity, you are required to be registered. And whether registration is obtained, so you will report registration has not been obtained. So as per clause 16 para 3 of Caro 2020, you need to report whether company is required to be registered under section 45 IA of RBI Act 1934? And if yes, whether registration has been obtained. So when is the registration required? When your principal business activity is a financing activity. So you need to report whether it is carrying on the business of non-banking financial institution without certificate of registration. So basically both the two sub clauses A and B you are reporting here. Got it, sir? Now, sir, what are the audit procedure in this case? Go with the flow. First of all, you need to examine the transaction of the activities of the NBFC. Based on the activity, you get to know whether they are passing the 50-50 test. 50-50 test means whether the financial assets are more than 50% of the total assets and the income is more than 50% of the gross income. After the 50-50 test, what is the other thing we see? Net owned funds. See, in the beginning, the chart that I taught you, na, sir, which chart you are talking about? This chart. That first you need to check 50-50 test, then RBI registration. Same flow I am following in this answer also. So first you examine the transaction to see the 50-50 test. Then you check the net owned funds. Based on this, you decide whether the company has obtained the registration as NBFC. If not, you need to ask the reasons for the same from management and document it. Is the flow of our first 4 points clear? Yes, sir. Now, sir, what about reporting? In case of reporting, you just need to report whether registration is required. If it is required, whether they have obtained. If they have not obtained, reason therefore. Come on. Registration required? If yes, whether it is obtained. If not obtained, what is the reason for the same? And in the last, you just need to conclude that they don't have the minimum net owned funds which is required for registration. Now, sir, will we take 2 crore or 10 crore? So here ICI has taken an assumption since the NBFC has been existing since 2015. They have followed the existing limit of 2 crore, not the new limit of 10 crore. So unless ICI gives a clarification on this, you need to follow this limit of 2 crore only. Again, this thing, whether it is to be taken 2 crore or 10 crore for such type of question, if there is more clarity on this, I will discuss it on my Telegram channel. Please join the Telegram channel. Clear CA with Shubham Keswani. Link is in the description. Deal done? Done, sir. So all the questions which were required from my side, I have discussed in this revision. Chalo, one more bonus thing from my side. Question number 2 of your test your understanding. Please focus on this. Let's solve it together. It says Sugam Housing Finance Limited. It is in the housing finance activity having asset size of 800 crore. Okay. Now, sir, under the scale-based regulation, what will be the appropriate classification? So we all know in the middle layer, housing finance activities are covered. Here, the asset size is not relevant. Got it, sir. Is there a reporting requirement for housing finance activity? Answer is yes. If you go through your book, it is clearly written whether the company has conducted non-banking financial or housing finance activity without certificate of registration. So this is the same line that you need to quote here. Sir, yes. Please help us do some MCQs also now. Okay, let's do the MCQs also which are given at the end of your question bank. Everyone, please come to the MCQ wala part. Yes, sir. First of all, focus on question number 1, revising all the MCQ with you. Board of Directors have passed a resolution for non-acceptance of public deposit during the year 22-23. Which of the following statement is most appropriate for obligation of auditor? So we all know that this thing has to be reported in the additional report to the Board of Directors. So this will be the right answer. No reporting on this is required in CARO 2020. Got it, sir. Second thing, most appropriate regarding the reporting requirement for certificate of registration. So when it comes to certificate of registration, this is required to be reported in CARO 2020. Plus, it also need to be reported in the Board of Director ka report. So the right answer will be option D. Whether company has obtained certificate of registration, it is to be reported in the additional report to the Board of Director. Got it, sir. Plus, you also need to report whether company is entitled to hold such certificate based on the 50-50 test. Second thing is, you also need to report it in CARO 2020. Okay. So CARO 2020 and Board of Directors ka report, both of these places you need to report about the registration. Question number 3. Talking about the cash embezzlement, that is a fraud. Where do we need to report it? In CARO 2020, clause 11. Do we need to report it to the Board of Director report? Answer is no. You only need to report it in CARO 2020. Got it, sir. Now talking about question number 4. As regards the description of capital adequacy ratio in para D, which of the following meets the regulatory requirement? So if you see in para D, it says it is a middle layer deposit taking NBFC. Got it, sir. Non-deposit taking NBFC एंड कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो इज मेंशन्ड इन नोट 36. नॉन डिपॉजिट टेकिंग एनबीएफसी के लिए कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो रिक्वायरमेंट, व्हाट वाज दैट? सर, देयर वाज समथिंग इन रिलेशन टू एनबीएस 7. So two things need to be reported, whether it is correctly arrived and it is meeting the minimum CRAR requirement. Last MCQ that is asked in your study material, there is an area which involves significant judgment. How do you show that area in your audit report? Do you need to show it in the board of director report? No. 143.3? No. Emphasis of matter? No. Anything which is significant, JRT, which we cover in SA 701, significant judgment, significant risk, or significant transaction that you need to report as a key audit matter. So the right answer will be option D, reporting it as a key audit matter. Okay, so that was a quick revision of the case study based MCQs which are given in your ICA material. Done, sir. So with this, your whole revision along with the concepts, amendments, and questions of NBFC gets done. If you enjoyed the video, do give it a like, and please let me know in comments if you are watching till here, how was your experience with this NBFC revision? I hope it helped you, and yes, keep studying with happiness, because then only we progress. If you have not yet subscribed the channel, do hit the subscribe button, and yes, see you on in the next video. Keep going, keep learning. Let's rock in the coming exams.